We already discussed the output file, the actual graph, but how do we get to this graph? How do we create the output file showing a graph on the screen? Well, that's what the generator does. Here we have a directory or folder with a jar file in it. The jar file is a Java program, and in this case it is the actual AnRep3D generator. Let's double click it, and we see a screen popping up. The screen can be moved. So here we only have some information to avoid looking at the manual all the time, so it's more or less a memory jogger, but it's irrelevant for somebody who actually generates graphs several times a week or a year. So an experienced person won't need it, but for a starter it's some nice information. We click OK, and then a screen appears asking for an input file. This is just the logo. Here we see the folder where the jar itself was placed, and here an example of an input file is available. We select it. We can select it by double clicking or just single clicking and opening it, and then here it appears, and we are allowed to select an output file. Now the funny part is we could just take this one and rename the extension to HTM because it's an HTML file, but it's not necessary if we just click this one. So we keep the extension the same as the original one, then it will still be changed to HTML because all output files are HTML files. So that's an easy way to get the output file name. Just select the input file name and it will be converted to HTML even if the input file is called txt. Now we start and we get a message about the graph being created. That's all. This is a neutral license we currently have in stock, but the real license of course will bear a name in this screen. Now we click OK and everything is finished. There are other possibilities. If we click OK and look at the screen asking for the input file, we could of course accidentally choose an HTML file as an input file. That's not possible. So if we do this, we get an error because it is an HTML file. We have to select an input file again, and this time we will choose the txt file. Now the output file can be an HTML file, the same HTML file or an other one. But let's see, if we take this one, this is a txt file, we open it, it will be converted automatically to an HTML file, and it says, do you want to overwrite? Yes, we want to overwrite, and we will overwrite the HTML version of the file. Actually it looks for the HTML version. Now we start and the file is generated. The graph is generated. We will be able to look at it using a browser. We just take this file, the HTML version we just created, 6th of June in the evening, and the graph appears. Now this graph is a little bit far away, so we can move it to the front. We can change the location by double clicking. We can move it to the left, to the right, change the center, so we can turn it in another way. Of course, we don't need to use the Explorer to start our jar file. We also can create a shortcut on our desktop. Here the shortcut is called AnRep3D generator. It's still pointing to the original file. So let's double click and we get the same screen. We click OK, get the same input screen, of course, because it's only a shortcut to the original generator. And because the jar is still in the same place, it points to the same folder. Of course, we can select another folder down, or we can go up and go to the input file like we did before, and again this time directly selecting the HTML file, opening it, and here we get the warning again. Do we want to overwrite? Yes, we want to overwrite, or maybe no this time. No, then we will be able to select an output file again and rename it. So let's see and change the name, for instance number 2. It's called AnRep3D 3 companies for 3 years, and this is the second version. And we take this one, and now we start the generator, and again we get a warning: the file has been created and is available. Of course, the graph is still the same because we use the same input file. If we change things in the input file, then we will get a different graph, not using a shortcut or placing the generator in another folder, of course. So we can, like we discussed in previous videos, change the size of the font, the scaling factor and so on, but this is just about how to generate the graph.